there corrections to the minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Susan. Second? Second.
Second.
Have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, transportation planning work program amendment.
That's gonna be me. So every year, we usually do this previously in the previous month, since we didn't have a meeting, we're doing it now. For our unified work program or transportation planning work program required by Iowa DOT for RPA-18, we usually put out a yearly budget and what we're gonna work on. Towards the end of the year, we usually do an adjustment of what we budgeted versus what we actually spent. This year, one of the things that our budget faced was we spent more in a couple of different accounts, mainly doing committee and committee training. And this was due to some staff turnover throughout the year. Takes a little bit of time to staff up and educate and train staff to do certain things. And when they leave, we have to redo that again and put a lot of effort to understand how we run and do this committee. So this is kind of the changes that we did. Overall, we're not asking for more money. The total bottom line number stays the same. All we're doing is switching accounts from Heartland 2050 activities to areas like board committee support and regional transportation planning. That's more along the lines of the long range transportation plan, et cetera. That is pretty much it. We need a motion from this board approving this budget amendment to submit to Iowa DOT. That's pretty much all we're.
Okay, any questions or comments? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
Make the motion to approve.
Motion by Jake, do I have a second?
No.
You have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Okay. This year,
We need a motion by the policy committee.
oh yeah. I guess we do.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion by the policy committee. Do I have a second? I'll second that. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we need policy and technical. We have a,
Sorry, this is the next action item.
pardon?
We're good. We're good on the last one.
Okay, okay. Okay, fiscal year 2026 final transportation improvement program.
Alrighty, so we presented the draft transportation improvement program at our last meeting back in May. This is not final, it's due to Iowa DOT July 15th, so we're just wrapping that up today and signing a resolution, and we'll be getting that to Iowa DOT as soon as that is approved. So for those of you who might be newer to the group or are just not as familiar with what HAPA does and what the RPA requirements are, we are required to do a transportation improvement program annually. This is for all RPAs and MPOs, of which MAPA administers. It basically is just a list of those capital and non-capital projects within the region that are proposed for federal aid and or SWAT funding. So this would go from 2026 or federal fiscal year 2026 through 2029. So it's 4 years. And that includes funding pots like STBG, which is the Surface Transportation Block Grant, TASA, or you might also be familiar with that as TAP, which is the Transportation Alternatives, and other kind of random sources that are more through the state are all recorded within the TIP. So those are all, those projects across the region are selected based on a set of established regional priorities that have been created in alignment with the LRTP, which we're actually in the current LRTP update cycle. So we'll actually be talking about that at August meeting. So sneak peek for you there.
LRTP is our long range transportation plan, which is a once every 5 years regional planning effort.
Correct. And just as a side note for that, we did not open the STBG call for projects this year, and we did open the TASA call for projects, but did not receive any applications. So there are no new STBG or TASA projects for this edition of the TIP. We do have some project updates since we last presented the draft. First off, we have the Shelby County project. It was let ahead of schedule, and so it does not need to be in the FY26 TIP. The Harlan project, that one's going to be rolled over as it's been pushed back. Harrison County project, that one is also going to be amended. We have a big amendment that we're going to be doing that will kind of touch on some of these further into the fall. So that's just a heads up for y'all. There's a new project that Iowa DOT is working on for a bridge replacement. And that's just no regional funds are involved in that. That's strictly through Iowa DOT. Again, we have the Pot County project on the Tamarack Road. Those funding amounts were adjusted, and so we had to make changes for that. And then some of these other projects, we just had to make some updates to some details of how they are recorded in our official TIP system, which is called TPMS, and that's run by Iowa DOT.
So do we have any questions on these changes yet?
To clarify
Yeah.
mine,
Yes.
I can only select swap.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
And
not-
we went and updated that on our end. So whenever you guys have finalized your CFYP amendment, just let us know and we can move forward with that.
Yeah, so that's an amendment that we were able to make on our spot. It's kind of confusing on TPMS because there's the federal aid and then HSIP, right?
Yeah,
If you do swap as the programming type, then you can select HSIP swap within swap.
okay.
So it's kind of like a little weird setup that way. When we talked with Zach Bidding at Iowa DOT, he advised us to just make the change on our end. And then whenever you guys are able to update your county 5-year plan to make sure that it matches, then we should be fine. The only reason that we switched it ahead of schedule is so that because apparently when you make the changes to the county 5-year plan, it'll push into the STIP as well. So this way it's already lined up.
So when would we select HSIP?
Sorry?
When would we select HSIP?
When you program it in your county 5-year plan. So you would program it as swap, HSIP swap.
Right, but right now it's selected as just HSIP, not swap.
Right,
How
so.
do we do that?
So what, I'm not sure how your county 5-year plan works in terms of how you amend that. So you would need to do an amendment and then just go into the county 5-year plan and TPMS.
Yeah, no, I know how to amend it. I'm just saying. I selected HSIP because there's HSIP fundings. But then.
So Zach
when
was
does
just
that
saying,
Apply,
so I'm not sure.
okay.
That was a comment that we got back from Iowa DOT after they reviewed the draft.
Mhm.
And Zach just said, this is in here as HSIP, it should be in here as HSIP swap. So I'm not sure what the deciding factor is between those two funding sources. It could just be something that comes down from Iowa DOT. I'm not sure.
Yep, no, I'll get it changed. Thanks.
No worries.
Any other questions, comments on these updates before we move on to motions?
And on the, Susan, just for your benefit, on the highway bridge program, Tamarack Road project, that was a change that was done by the county. So we're assuming that those are correct and we're just rolling them into the.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right, hearing nothing. These are just some other updates. We did not receive any other public comments because we for the draft we'll open up a public comment period so that if the member of the public would like to say anything about any changes that have been made or any of the projects that they are free to. But we did not receive any public comments, so there's nothing to note there. A note on the this Harrison County project. They did not spend as many funds as they were allocated, and so that's going to be coming. That about 80K is going to be rolling back into the STBG fund. On top of that, and I'll let Carlos speak to this a little bit more, but there's an Iowa DOT pavement data opportunity that we've been made aware of. So that would require about 120,000 of STBG funds. And because we received that 80K back, that would cover most of that. So it wouldn't significantly affect our STBG balance. As far as that, Carlos, you want to add a little more?
Sure. So Iowa DOT runs their pavement condition. They have a different cycle for all the quadrants in the state. This time around in 2026 is the next time they're gonna do our RPA region. As part of that, we have the option to, each individual community and county can apply for additional funds to cover more of their local roads and get it on a more frequent basis. Or what we found out was if the RPA does that for the entire region, we could program it into our tip. And it covers additional localized roadways and data on this 2026. So we decided in order to get more accurate data, this would be good. The fun thing about this is there is no local match, right? So we put it in the tip, everyone gets additional data and information about their paved roads. And we collect data that we're gonna use in future iterations of our LRTP, et cetera. So good overall. I think it's a great opportunity. I really think this is a good approach to get all the 4 counties and all the cities within them additional data on pavement condition. That it would be readily available to all of them.
Additional data or just more frequent? The same.
A little bit of both. So my understanding is that every 4 years, Iowa DOT does a run and collects some data, not all the local roadways. This gives us in 26, instead of waiting until 28 or 29 to get the data, we would have that a little bit sooner. But B, it's also my understanding, I could be wrong. My understanding is they're going to collect all paved roads within cities. Is what I took away from India. So I thought it was a good idea.
Sounds like you're referring to that ADT data, just
It's the pavement condition. So there's an actual pavement. So if you go into the notes, we'll show you what the data looks like. That link,
I don't know how important that DOT pavement data is to any of us as county engineers in here because I mean, we all have a pretty good handle of what our road conditions are. I don't know, if I've ever looked at the DOT's pavement deal to determine what a road needs and which needs to be first. I think we all have a pretty good idea of what our roads need. $120,000 seems like a lot for something that they do every 4 years anyways. Just my thought.
Is that 120,000 reoccurring?
it would be once every 4 years though.
Yeah, so if it's not perpetual.
Like
we
it's
just
the
pay it
up
every-
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd pay it every 4
Right.
years to be on and off cycle of what the DOT does.
Sounds like it would be more beneficial to the cities than to the counties.
Potentially, we don't have any city representation here to say if it would or it wouldn't.
Right.
So, and over time, you should be able to look at how the conditions are changing as well within the pavement condition. These are based on, I believe, the NCI and AC, whatever the name is. But it does have a good deal of information. It does contain a lot of rich detail that is very useful when you're trying to decide your city budgets. Which road, local road do we want to pave and when? Like, this could be helpful. We at MAPPA would probably use this as a verification for some of the projects we've received. So as part of our selection process, we would like to use this data to classify and understand the level of degradation on the pavement to then be able to compare different projects. So when SCBG projects come in, and we're having a harder time trying to figure out which one should go first and prioritize. Well, this could be an input, right? Like this one has a 2.1 rating and this one has a 1.89, right? To help in our prioritization process as we start getting more selective and having less funds.
So Jamie, is this information you have access to already?
This is an action item.
Yeah, so because this would require almost $120,000 in regional STVG funds, it would be something that the board would need to approve before it could move forward.
I'll make a motion to not approve the spending of the 120,000 for this data collection.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to not approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
And it may be easier to simply approve the rest of the tip with the note being that we would leave that out. So I would maybe suggest that as an action instead.
Do I amend my motion or has to be decided?
What's that again?
So it would be a motion to approve the draft tipped as presented, removing the pavement data.
Okay,
Yes, that'll be my motion.
that's your motion, Jake.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
And then again for the policy.
Okay, for policy. I'll make a motion to approve. Second. A motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried.
So we'll make sure that that gets removed final.
All right. We'll move along to the bylaws update. So as we kind of discussed at our last meeting, and for those of you who weren't there, we've been going through some important. We've been going through some systematic updates for the bylaws and some of the information related to that. These are some of the updates. You have printed copies of all the changes that have been made. We did a pretty thorough overhaul of the original, so I didn't provide a redline copy as it would have been pretty much all read at this point. So we updated a lot of the language. A lot of that was just general updates, making things more concise, removing duplicate terminology. It also is just updating some of those terms, so RTA to RPA, and we also added those community membership items that were voted on in the May meeting, which included that small community rep from Pottawattamie County, as well as adjusting that 2,500 membership threshold level to make sure that we're still including Harlan and Missouri Valley. Additionally, on the officers and elections, we deleted everything related to like the secretary, treasurer, legal, in lieu of just a general. Anything else that is not specifically stated under responsibilities for the community members is covered by NAPA staff, which includes administration and other financial responsibilities. Also adjusted those election cycles. That was another item we had discussed previously, to make those biennial on the odd years. So that would mean we did end up having this last election cycle. We basically, the membership decided to just re-elect those who had previously been elected. So we'll be moving forward essentially on the same 2-year cycle, going forward on the odd years. We also went in and simplified a lot of the responsibility descriptions and adjusted those to reflect that. A huge part of this that we really wanted to make sure we included in this bylaws revision was the addition of the technical committee. So you'll see section or Article 5 is a completely new section, and that formalizes the technical committee in the bylaws. So they will be officially members of the technical committee of the RPA-18 with all the rights and privileges associated with that. That also means that where we have Jacob currently as the chair, we'll be needing to elect a vice chair. Just as because it's formalized, we'll need to have another committee officer in case Jacob is able to make it to every meeting, so that we have someone who can follow those responsibilities throughout the meeting in Jacob's stead. So if you guys want to take a few minutes to look through any of the other changes, I know there's some pretty significant ones in there. If you all just want to take a look and have any questions related to that, these are the major highlights. I didn't want to go through all 10 pages, individually, but if that's something the board wants to do, we definitely can. Any thoughts?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So as I read through what they've had, it says that board chair for the county can serve on this, but we have appointed Tony Smith as our representative here.
So-
Not our board chair.
Right. So that is something that we kind of caught this in a few weeks ago. Because we had election cycles back in December, a lot of the board of supervisors, personnel swapped over. So those that were chairs before are, maybe they're just members or maybe they've retired. So a lot of the boards have experienced that turnover this last year, and we just hadn't caught it up until about a month ago. And so as part of that, you will also all be, most of you, some of the boards are still fine with just how everything worked out. But large majority of you will be receiving emails from me asking for a redesignation of your alternates because of the adjustment to the boards. So that's the reason why Tony had been on the invite list up until now, and then we had realized like, oh yeah, things have changed and we need to update to make.
So do we need to change that on our end?
Not necessarily. If you want Tony to still be the representative,
I want Dave to be the representative.
so he's the technical, right? And so we have those split. That's also one of the updates we made previously. They had allowed technical members to be alternates on the policy side and vice versa. That got really complicated because it's like, okay, who are you representing now? What are you voting on? Which board committee are you voting on now? And so we decided to simplify that by getting rid of it. And so everyone is going to be either purely technical or purely policy at like any given time. If for any reason, like someone changed rules or whatever, we can adjust to that. But at any given time, you'll only be on one or two. So
When's the last time Tony attended?
I'm sorry.
When's the last time Tony attended?
I don't know if I've ever seen Tony.
He did attend. I started coming to these early last year, and he did attend a few of those. But I honestly haven't seen or heard from him in a while.
I'll talk to him tomorrow and see if he's still interested.
Yeah,
We need to make a change on it.
Yeah, and if he's not, and there's another individual who'd be better set for an alternate, then you can designate that. And on our end is an email that acknowledges, hey, this is our person who is on board, and this is who they've designated as.
Got it. Thank you.
So I'll be reaching out after this meeting, to those of you to whom that applies, and say, hey, this is who your designated rep was previously. If you would like to continue that, I'll just need essentially a renewal email, and I've got some language drafted. So you basically just have to fill in a name to make that really easy. But yeah, if you would like to maintain the formal rep, like the official one that is identified in the bylaws, we can also go that way. Additionally, part of what will go into that is, so that's the policy side. On the technical side, in the bylaws, I should have included that on my notes, but I didn't. We're adjusting that so that the policy board is essentially appointing the technical representative for their jurisdiction. That's just because we kind of defaulted to engineers previously, but some of like the smaller towns and whatnot don't have engineers. And so it's just easier to say, okay, we're gonna have a technical rep. You can identify whoever that is within these specific types of specialties, like expertise. So that includes like public health, planning, engineering, land use. There's a few other ones that they're identified in those bylaws as a list. So that's also an option. Again, I'll include that information in that email. So it'll be two parts. It'll be one will be that policy, like, hey, who do you want to be the policy rep at this point, the official one or the designated one? And then on the technical side, we'll be saying, okay, kind of a similar thing, but if you don't already have a designated technical representative, which Missouri Valley and Harlan currently do not, they're new additions. Technically Harlan's an old one, but they still haven't had a technical committee representative this entire time. So we're just gonna make sure that there's kind of like equal representation across both committees from that sense. And so I'll be sending out information about that shortly. Yeah. Any other questions about the bylaws or edits that are requested?
Do you have the bylaws in a Word document by any chance?
Do,
That
yeah.
show the revision
I do not have the red line version, but I could get if that's beneficial. And again, if the board, I'm sorry, if the membership doesn't feel comfortable, like if you don't feel like you've had enough time to look over everything, we can postpone a motion on this until August. It's not a huge rush necessarily, but we would like to clarify the committee officers and elections and things like that as soon as possible. Just to clarify all the cycles, because those typically start over in July. So now it's just a really good time of year to kind of make all these changes.
Yeah, I agree with Brian on the board chair composition of this policy. Typically, we change board chairs every year, every 2 years. And I know it's taken me a long time to grasp what this committee does. And by bringing in a new board chair every year, it takes a step back instead of moving this organization forward. So I don't understand the reason for limiting to the chairs of the county boards. It should be a representative of each county board.
I agree with Susan.
So the point of, we kind of have to identify one person somewhere within the bylaws. Because none of the technical is identified, we have to have a default, right? There's a legal term for that, but basically, like, you have to have an identified person or position that is their go-to.
So can it be
If
worded
we
that?
didn't have that, we wouldn't know who's gonna appoint them, right? Like, the whole point is like all the appointees come back to the official policy member. They're like, they kind of delegate from there, but we have to have that initial starting point to be able to do that.
And we're allowing a named alternate. So Angie, like, if you wish to remain here, you could be the named alternate for your community and continue through for a longer term. But we just need the chairs to acknowledge that for each county supervisor district. And part of the nexus between that, it's always actually been that way. Honestly, when we looked at the bylaws, it always said the chair of each county was the member of the policy. And they could always name a named alternative to attend these meetings. And I think part of the connection is what we're trying to do is influence and understand the spending infrastructure that we have within the RPA, right? We're dealing with money. We want to make sure that everyone's informed and aware that this money is A, available to counties and cities within each community, and B, how best to spend the funds that are pulled together for this region. And so that's why we thought, like, I think the original thought was the chair of each county supervisor should be at the table to help make those decisions.
Is the money ever used for anything other than roads?
It can be.
There's trails under the
trails,
stream funding.
clearing, safe routes to school. There are a couple of different instances where you could use some of the funds for other things. One of the things that SCDG does not allow is the way Iowa has structured it. Their preference is to have construction projects. However, what we're looking at in cities like Logan, and I'm gonna butcher one of their names, so I won't say it, but they're looking at how do we do the preliminary engineering studies, the early concept designs? Where do we get federal assistance to do that? Technically, SVG at the federal level is able to be used for those early stages, right? To try to figure out the right of way, to try to figure out an actual probable cost of construction, right? And if they want to change how a major corridor that runs through their town functions, that cost is borne on the local community, on the local city. So you're talking about 10% of a $2 million project, right? Which would be $200,000. Now, if we could defray that 80%, that's a much easier get for local communities. One of the strategies that we're looking at is being able to transfer some of the STBG to the RPA so that we could do planning studies for local communities, right? So an example is you have repavement going through Main Street, whatever town. The city wants to do something different with that street. They want to add sidewalks, they want to add bike facilities, they want to add crosswalks, whatever it is. Normally DOT is just going to resurface and place back within the curbs, right? This early intervention, right, early planning can help guide the future construction. So that's one idea where we're trying to understand how to best use these funds for local communities and help them out. And then two, once we have a better probable cost, it makes projects so much easier. Then you don't have to be redoing or extending out timeline over timeline to get a project done. So it gets us closer to getting projects let.
It sounds like bylaws read a designated board of supervisor.
Well,
You're still naming a person.
last month, this board voted Charlie and me on for a 2-year term to serve as chair and vice chair.
That's who I'd have picked.
So we need to go back to our board chairs to get approval that we've been appointed by this board to serve in those capacities.
I've been on this board for 13 years.
It's not so much approval as just covering our bases, right? So this isn't like a trust issue or anything like that. This is just, hey, this is technically what our bylaws say currently and actually have always said, and we haven't really been enforcing it. And so we're trying to make sure that we're following what we're required to do and what we've said we're going to do, and just kind of clean up. Like those of you who've been here a few years might have seen that we've been trying to make a lot of changes in cleaning up our processes and procedures, because they've just been become very lax and just not really enforced, which has made it really difficult on the administration side, because it sort of leaves everything up in the air for us to figure out. So we're trying to make sure we're coming down, we're being really efficient on how we're putting together the administration side of everything related to RPA-18. And if we button those things down and just say, okay, we're following the rules, then that makes everything much more efficient on the administration side and will help everything come out much cleaner. So every time that, a mistake happens or something doesn't make sense, typically we can relate it back to, oh, we've been doing this, but actually the guidance says to do this, and then we kind of have to figure that out. And so we're just trying to really come into alignment with what all of that guidance is saying and has said. And so it's not meant to be a call out or anything like that. This is just oh yeah, we're gonna just come into alignment. So I don't expect any of the membership to change unless someone doesn't wish to be the representative, or if their board decides they would like someone else, maybe who has a different technical expertise level, maybe on the technical side. I really don't expect membership to adjust. We're just doing this to say, okay, we did the thing we were supposed to do, and we're all clean on the official side.
I disagree. I think if we're amending the bylaws now, let's amend them to how we're currently operating, because it seems to be operating very smoothly. And with that, I will make a motion to table adoption of the bylaws until next month. And if you could send out a red line of what you're proposing, and then include a red line of how we're currently operating, and then we can review it and approve it next month.
When you say how we're currently operating, what are you referring to?
Well, in January of each year, the Board of Supervisors is responsible for identification of committee assignments for the board members.
Right.
And we have our list, and I'm sure you guys all do this the same way. We elect a primary and a secondary for every committee, and MAPPA is on there. And MAPPA, we've got the big MAPPA board, we have the MAPPA RPA and the TPA. And then there's another MAPPA finance board that I haven't even begun to figure out. But at that time, the board picks who's who, and we notify MAPPA that this is who's who, and you send us the meeting invites.
Gotcha.
There's about 20 boards that operate that way.
Right, and I totally understand that, and I don't disagree, and I don't think that actually contradicts with this update at all. All we're asking for is, hey, we need documentation. That's really what this is. We need documentation that has happened. And especially with turnover, we don't always know if something has changed or not. Or like if a member has retired or whatnot, or if they've been moved to a different community, unless we specifically reach out and say, hey, this we're not actually asking for a change, we're just wanting you to let us know what the official documentation is.
Before the supervisors, and you notify them every year, you're notified anyway. So if something changed within the year, you'd be notified that something was changing.
I guess, are you just looking for a copy of the minutes from January 2nd when they designate Susan as the
Yeah.
RPA
Yeah,
person? I mean, would that be good?
or why I can't read within the bylaws that says as designated by the county board of supervisors, or.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely take it back and take a look at it, make sure that it's cleaned up. Like, the intent is not to change how we're doing
No,
things in any way.
I get that.
Yeah.
But the bylaws do say it has to be the board chair.
Yeah,
Right,
and
and-
that was
The
originally,
designated
that has not
alternative
changed from the
function,
last.
that's basically
Right.
what's documented of who that representative is. I think that's 404.
And I mean, regardless of whether or not that's what it's said from the start, like if that wording doesn't work, this is our opportunity to change it,
We can
right?
change it.
So we can definitely take that back.
And if you
take a look
guys
at it.
all agree that it shouldn't be the board chair, please let us know. And I think we'll.
I think this is them letting us know, so we'll take it back and take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we could probably just change that to just county supervisors will appoint the designee and an alternate, and then that's it.
Sounds
If
good.
that works for everyone, that we can make that change.
Like right now, I don't know if I get a vote or not. Do I get a vote?
Not technically, and so we've actually
I have a
adopted.
motion on the floor right now.
Oh, wait,
People, yeah.
Yeah, the table on review.
wait, no.
Make a comment that Harrison County supervisor hasn't been coming. We have a Harrison County supervisor at the table.
No, and that was my mistake, because he is chair, he is actually the de facto representative, so he doesn't need a designated alternative.
The way it reads currently.
No, so that one wasn't changed,
Oh.
that's the same as it was.
It's my impression that Tony Smith made Steve Struble his alternate. for
Correct.
Policy votes.
Right.
Was he voting up until he retired?
Yes.
Yes, and that made it complicated because it was technically he was voting for both, which was sort of like a weird dichotomy.
What's the conflict there?
Because the whole point of having it split is that you're having someone who's on the technical side making recommendation, and then there's a counterpart on the policy side that they're taking a different set of expertise and filtering that recommendation through that. So if it's the same person, there's none of that.
So essentially, 2 people should come from each county. And Susan's been asking me for 2 years why nobody comes from Harrison County.
So there's a motion on the table, right?
Right.
Table.
I'll second that motion, Winquist.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who was the first?
In a second,
Susan.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Was supposed to come from the technical first?
The most
I don't know, because it says vote to approve that, so do you need vote to disallow it?
We make it, right?
So that motion was an additional amendment.
So we can, I think the easiest way to take this right now is we had a motion made by the policy board to table it. I think that kind of trumps the technical committee. We'll just leave it at that. We'll table it. We'll bring it back in August.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, we'll send you a red line document so you can see the changes that we've made. We already noted the language on policy board will be changed. We'll redline that, and yeah, if you have additional questions, email Rachel and we're happy to talk through whatever you guys need.
I'll just add one thing. If this is any sort of a point of contention, I can provide other examples of bylaws if you guys would like or find that as beneficial. I don't think that MAPPA staff here is trying to pull any sort of a fast one. We've been trying to do bylaws even when I was in Rachel's role.
Oh,
5
for
years
those
ago.
not familiar with the Voice in the Sky, this is Travis Hom, he's our RPA, MPO coordinator with Iowa DOT.
So I think the whole point of this is you guys kind of get to write your own rules a little bit here. So I think the reason that Rachel is doing a lot of this work is to make sure that everything makes sense. And so the questions like, oh, why isn't Harrison County here? Why have they never been here? But why was Steve always here? I think the whole point of this conversation is to make sure that how the board, how it is operating could potentially be how you do it, or if improvements get made, that's how you do it. So, if you guys would need or like any other examples, let me know. I think that, it's an important conversation to have, but I don't think it should have to be contentious at all. So,
I don't think anybody, I didn't get the feeling that you guys were pulling a fast one. I was just wanting clarification.
Yeah.
For our end.
If there aren't any objections to the technical committee portions of those bylaws, I'll just have us go ahead and run through the vice chair election. So that we can go ahead and include that, as they'll have technically taken office, as of July 1st. And so I'll just go ahead and if no one's opposed, we'll run through that.
So I guess that's the first question. Were there any comments, questions concerned with the technical committee portion of the bylaws? Start with that.
So now we're looking for nominations.
Yes, so but this is for technical committee only.
Okay, we're looking for nominations for vice chair of the technical committee. Do we have any nominations?
Whoever voted me as chair should be vice chair.
I think
Yeah, I don't think that's
fair.
just as a reminder,
Was it you?
the vice chair responsibility.
Yes.
Vice chair responsibilities are basically just to take over for the chair in case of their absence. So usually it's not something that's going to be a make or break deal. We just need someone who's willing to do it and who will be able to attend most of the time.
I'll nominate Chris Frederickson as the vice chair.
Second.
Yeah. Through that,
Paper, scissors.
thank you. Okay, do we have any other nominations? Looks like there's none. All in favor of Chris being vice chair of technical committee? Raise your right hand. Congratulations, Chris. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any members of the public would like an opportunity to speak? Is there an opportunity? Seeing as how there are no members of the public currently present, we will move along. All right, so we've got a couple updates. So as some of you may be familiar, we are working on an RPA-13 and 18 Safe Streets for All project. So we just kicked off our workshop this last week, or I'm sorry, that was a couple of weeks ago. And then this last week, we had our first STAG meeting. So that's stands for the Safety Technical Advisory Group. So that's basically just similar to this body. That's an advisory group that is going to speak into the development of that safety plan. So that safety plan covers those 7 communities, which there are Glenwood, Harlan, and Missouri Valley in RPA-18, and then there's 4 additional communities in RPA-13 that it also covers. So we're coordinating with SWIPCO. So that's just a little bit of an background on that project. Going forward, we are looking to continually reach out to folks that might be interested in being on that STAG group. We currently have a solid list, but we will be continually looking to add to that, and we want to get a lot of different perspectives. That includes public health, fire, police departments, emergency management, planners, engineers, anything that might be related to safety and on the transportation network. And so as we're going through with our consultants, we've started developing some of the materials. Our consultant team has put together a safety dashboard that covers each of these 7 communities, and they're continuing to work on that crash analysis as well as going into public outreach. So we're also looking to take part in some public outreach events that are already being established by those communities. So that might look like farmers markets, that might look like sports events and other similar community things that the community is already attending, right? So if we go and we just set up, the odds of being able to have people show up just for us is not super high, right? But if we're already going to an event that's already established and that the community is also already participating in, the idea there is that we'll get a lot more engagement and interaction on what this plan is going to look like, and get a lot of that public thoughts on, okay, where do you guys feel safe versus unsafe in your communities, and how can we incorporate what the public has to say about their communities into the plan.
Are you going to the county fairs?
That's a great question. I think they were on the list, but there were some technicalities on whether or not we could get in, and so we're trying to figure some of that out right now.
I think the county fairs, we're gonna charge for setting up a table. There were also considerations with general farmers markets and things like that, so we're still kind of processing and trying to figure out when and where those events would be. So if county fairs are the best option, then I mean, we'll take as many votes as we need to convince our group that that's where we should be.
Start this week.
Oh, we're not gonna make them to this week. I'll tell you that much.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we had our first stag meeting, the first technical group meeting was just yesterday. So we're trying to get the outreach events done by the end of the summer. We're gonna have materials that we're gonna send out to the local police enforcement for National Night Out is coming up in August, I believe. So we're gonna wanna make sure that we have some materials available at those events. And then farmers markets have been the big one, but if there are, Susan's shaking her head at me. So
Well, that covers the cities, but it doesn't cover the counties.
right,
So the plan is
the counties do have their own safety action plans already. So those were the 97 county plans that were run through the Iowa County of Engineers Association. So those plans are done and did look at all of the county roads specifically. With this project, it is really trying to focus on the communities and the cities themselves.
Yeah, so it's
You guys
only
give
those-
to the county fairs, all the other counties give money to county fair.
Yep.
So couldn't they fall under that umbrella? We give you guys a donation. Let them set up for no charge.
I can't imagine that they charge a fee in Avoca.
Something to look into.
I don't know if Shelby County doesn't or not. I don't know.
Yeah, we can definitely take a closer look at that for sure. We don't have materials ready to do anything this week regardless, so.
But if you guys become aware of any of those community events happening that you think might be a good fit for us to go and try and do some outreach, just go ahead and shoot me and Lindsay an email, and we'll make sure to try and figure out how we can make that happen.
Well, it's not gonna happen this year because the fair starts tomorrow, so.
Right, and maybe not fairs, but just any events that are happening throughout the summer and maybe even into early fall, that we might not otherwise be aware of. As you guys are the experts on your communities, and so you guys kind of know what's happening in your areas, and so we want to make sure
Public health fairs.
you guys have all. Yes.
I'm still ramping up, so bear with me, but I thought I'd heard of this, and the idea was that you were jumping through some of the hoops for us to make the SS4A money a little easier, more accessible.
Correct.
But now you're saying it's just for the cities?
So according to the grant, you're not allowed to have overlapping plan geographies. So only one geography boundary can have a single plan. So if we were to say, oh, we're just gonna do all of RPA-18, it would overlap with the 97 county plan that already includes those counties. So
And the-
because of that, but it excludes those, the cities, over a certain population threshold. And so it meant those cities were basically just cut out of the county plan and weren't gonna be eligible for any of that safety funding. So to kind of offset that, we decided to put together this plan to kind of fill in the gaps that had been created by that plan.
So yours should be complete already, or about. We just got our.
Yeah.
This week.
So that same.
That's supposed to know anything by tomorrow and then finalize.
But we were in criminal iteration, so they might be a little behind.
Yeah, we know that Pot County has received it. We have not received anything from Shelby, Harrison, or Mills as of right now.
That is
And
correct.
so-
They have been finalized though, I just haven't received the
There's
plans.
a
yet.
couple of update revisions online
Yeah.
that I just sent this week.
So if you could share those with us, that would be super helpful as well. We're using a lot of this information to feed into our long-range transportation plan. We want to incorporate the safety aspects and goals and outcomes that we want in terms of these county safety plans into our long range plan to have congruency, right? We don't need one plan saying we're gonna reduce traffic fatalities by whatever number, and then another plan saying something else. Now let's bring it together. That's all we want to do.
I did get that document this week. It's large. So is the idea then that if I need to make sure that it fits well because it'll help me with the SS4A money? Okay. so
You need that to be able to apply for these other grants. And
Right. SS4A, the application cycle for this year has closed. But basically, it says if you want to do a construction project, you have to have an identified plan. And you would just check that box when you're doing your application. Our county has a plan. It's in the whatever the name of the plan is. Here are the 3 strategies or construction projects we want to use these funds for. Additionally, if you need assistance with any of those grant applications, we, MAPA staff, are happy to help out with that. We're getting more and more involved in this safety work and trying to apply and gain additional knowledge on how we could leverage funds. One of the things that we do on the Nebraska side is we work very closely with our state agencies to figure out how to disperse and help local communities access highway safety improvement projects, so HSIP funding from the state. So that should not be all that dissimilar on the Iowa side, so we'd be happy to help out there too. And some of it is just having conversations with Travis and Scott Sewer and trying to figure out how do we fund these projects. Our funding for the RPA is also available for that. So if you wish to do safety related projects, the regional SDBG is eligible for that. So there we go.
I'll add something there. I've been asked by local systems bureau to actually serve on a committee on how to actually turn these plans into projects that'll be effectuated upon. So there's a good likelihood that in the fall, MAPA staff will be seeing correspondence from me on that in terms of how communities can take both from the 93 county one, but also from these other independent ones, and in terms of actually providing safer things for or safer projects for cities, counties, whoever, regardless of who was covered under which planning effort. So.
Yeah, so our request would be that if you would have any of those outreach events that you might know of, go ahead and send those our way. Additionally, we're also looking for contacts that we can continue to add to our list for the STAG. We had a great first meeting, but we're still looking to grow that group and get some more perspectives to add to that. All right.
And if any of you want to sit in on those meetings too, make sure, let us know and we can share your sentiments. Right? I know you're shaking your head at me, but just in case, like we can always put a hold on your calendar if you want.
And honestly, I think you guys are on the list to receive the emails for those meetings. So it's also like you don't have to be at every one. You can show up as you can or are able, and that's totally acceptable. So
We're making sure that the slides go out like after effect, so if people there's that opportunity as well.
yeah, and the recordings as well. So if you're curious about what was talked about, or even just want to look at the resources that we went over, like that dashboard I mentioned earlier, or some of the other initial docs that our teams put together, that'll also be public on, I believe, our website. All right, so it's summer. We are going to have an August meeting. I know we usually don't, but just due to the schedule with our long range transportation plan and that approval cycle, we're looking to present the draft for that in August. So please be there if possible. That would be awesome. We're hoping not to have our September meeting, but we'll see kind of how everything else shakes out and whether or not we have to end up adding that back in. But those are the dates for that. Are there any other events that you all are
ISAC,
You're the only one going.
Yeah.
that Richard's going.
Seemed to always be around August like 21st or something.
Probably that following.
somewhere there.
Is there a conference that overlaps with one of these dates?
We have ISAC.
Okay, would
I was thinking it was that next week.
would it be preferred if we were to?
It's the next week. It's August 21st.
Okay,
Worst case is the 13th.
good. Alrighty. That is all I have. If there's any other comments, thoughts, suggestions, speak now.
Got a bunch of new guy questions. I don't want to hold
Yeah,
everybody.
we're free. Yeah, no, we can chat after.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Have a second?
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
I.
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting
Thank you.
adjourned.
Thank you, Angie.